Welcome back to the workshop, everybody. So glad you could be with me here today. Walter here at the Stratos XL wood lathe. Well, I've been doing some testing on this curly soft maple. And I've been doing some die testing. Some of you may have seen it on Facebook. I've tested several different die procedures, and this was the last one. It did not come out terrible. The only thing is this is not the finished shape that I wanted. What I was trying to do, and I'll try to point it out here, there's more curl on one side than the other. There's a little darker heartwood in the bottom. I wanted to blend all that, and I wanted to pop the grain a little bit more. So I've got all different colors of dyes. This happens to be a mix of aqua green and turquoise. Well, I've been turning this away a little bit each time I test the color, so this is where it got to, and it's about 3/4 of an inch thick towards the bottom, a little wider towards the top, got over an inch here on the rim. This is not the finished shape. I'm going to be turning this down to a thinner wall thickness. So normally on what we call flat work, or like cabinetry, furniture, things like that, you can apply one coat of black dye on bare wood. After you've sanded, you put the black dye on. Then you go back to your last sanding grit and you sand the whole piece again until most of the black on the surface is gone. Then you put your colored dye on. And that works great to pop the tiger stripe. Because the black gets down in deep, it won't sand off, then you put your colored dye over top of it. It accentuates the tiger. The trouble with doing it on bowls is you have end grain here, and you've got long grain or flat grain on the face, and longer grain towards the outer edges with less and less end grain. So you get a lot of dye penetration on the end grain. So to sand that off, and you all know sanding end grain is like sanding stone. It takes a lot longer to sand end grain than it does side grain. You can cause your bowl or flat plate turning like a plate to go out of round. So this was just a practice piece. What we're going to do right now is I'm going to turn this away. This has got a couple coats of hand-polished shellac on it. I wanted to see what kind of depth I was going to get. And so, but now it's time to say goodbye. Now, you might not be able to see it on the camera, but you will pick up some of it. Like where the tiger grain is, you'll pick up a little bit of the dye having penetrated deeper. The other thing that happened with this one is the dye went into the end grain and came up on the outside of the bowl. So this piece is now predestined to become a turquoise or aqua green colored bowl when I get it to finished shape. There's no sense wasting more wood to try to get rid of this stain, the dye, because it's just not going to go away. So we proceed to turn away what we did and get it to the right shape that I wanted. I have two others that I did like it. see here, the dye is deeper in, like right here. And you can see the darker heartwood showing up there. I have to be real careful not to go too deep because I'm working with a recess chuck situation here, not a spigot. It's a recess in the bottom. So I'll always be taking lighter cuts here. But most of the dye, there's some there, and that's what, yep, that's what went right through to the outside. And so I don't think there'll be any way, over here too, I don't think there'll be any way to get rid of that. I'll try washing it with maybe alcohol first and then lacquer thinner. I'll try washing it to see if I can't get rid of the dye. If I can get rid of the dye, then I'll change my final decision. But I wanted to just share this with you because too often, many wood turners and woodworkers will get an idea in their head about a project and they'll finish the piece completely. Finish it. They'll totally finish the project and go to put a finish, a stain or a dye or an oil or a lacquer, and they don't like the results. So the key point I'm trying to make in this video is test, test, test. And test on the wood that you're going to make the project out of. So you start out in the middle of a turning, you can test your finish, you can test your dye, then you can turn it away. Then you can test again and you can turn it away. You can do that a few times, but once you start getting thinner on bowls, it goes right through that end grain and you're finished. So that's about it for today. I just wanted to give you this quick tip, and I hope that you head out to your shop and go make some shavings. Walter out.